Joining me now is Michael McFaul, former U.S. ambassador to Russia and MSNBC international affairs analyst, and Charlie Sykes, MSNBC contributor and columnist. Thank you both for being here, gentlemen. I do want to start with you, Michael McFaul, Ambassador McFaul. I guess because I just finished writing a book about Medgar Evers and Myrlie Evers Williams, it's just on my mind, this idea of courage in the face of what is near certain death. People who stay or go into a place where they know that they are physically at risk because of their love of country, love of their family, just love of good things, of good and of right. Alexei Navalny went into Russia knowing he would likely be arrested, knowing he would likely be killed. He is that kind of figure. What do you make of how alone he sort of is in terms of American conservatives who I think a generation ago would have been lauding him in his sacrifice, but today are largely silent? And tell us, what was he like? What was he like as a person?
Well, Joy, to your first question, I'm glad you brought up those historical examples. That's exactly the kind of person we should be comparing Alexei Navalny to. And you're right, he knew the risks. I was talking to him right before he went back, corresponding with him. He knew exactly the risk you're talking about. The greatest burden he had, to be honest, was not about himself, but about being the absent father and about being the absent husband that he knew was likely to happen, and the burden on his family. It was not about his own fate. And tragically, that burden has become even greater, though, as you noted, Yulia has already decided, Yulia Navalnaya, that she is going to play the role of leading this movement. Doesn't surprise me in the least, and she is a very strong, competent, capable person to do so. It's just tragic she has to do so under these circumstances. You know, with respect to Alexei, it's a big question. You asked your second one. I would just say a couple of things. You know, I knew him for a long time, but because of politics, like when I was ambassador, we never met once because it was bad for his political career. We would joke about it, and we ran into each other one time at a anniversary meeting for the Moscow Times, but he didn't want to be accused of being a puppet of the United States. After I got out of the government, I became closer to his family because his daughter goes to school here at Stanford. I just saw Yulia the night before Alexei was killed in Munich. I saw her, talked to her the day after and saw her. And getting to know them, I would say this is a world historic figure. You don't get a chance to meet many of them in life, and I have in my time in life. I also write about them because I write about democracy movements and I teach courses on democratization. He is one of those figures. He had the intelligence, he had the charisma, extremely funny. He was extremely principled and courageous, and he knew that his ideas were better than Putin's ideas. And yes, dictators can kill individuals, but they can't kill ideas. And I'm confident in predicting, I don't know when, but I'm confident in predicting his ideas will prevail over Putin's ideas in the long run.
Yeah, it's perfect. It was Medgar Evers who said you can kill a man, but you cannot kill an idea. And I think that he actually embodies that exact same thing, Alexei Navalny. Let me go to you, Charlie Sykes, because Donald Trump had the nerve. And it is pretty, it takes a lot of nerve to compare yourself to Alexei Navalny, who sacrificed his life for his country because he is a patriot of his country. Donald Trump tried to overthrow the government of his country. He might do better to compare himself to Putin when he himself has argued through his lawyers that he has the authority and right as president to use SEAL Team 6 to kill his political opponents. Putin just used a prison to kill his political opponents, allegedly. You have, people that he praises, like Viktor Orban. That's who he respects. People like Xi Jinping in China. People like Kim Jong-un in North Korea. That's who he respects. How dare he compare himself? Javier Milei, who wants to invade Guyana to steal their oil. Those are his friends. That's who he likes. What do you make of the fact that he dared to compare himself to somebody who martyred himself, was a martyr for the betterment of Russia?
Well, it was obscene. As the ambassador pointed out, Alexei Navalny represented two things very starkly, I think, last week. Number one was what real, genuine courage looked like. And two, highlighted the existence of evil in Russia today, and Vladimir Putin represents not just an authoritarian force, but he is a murderer who has been defended and befriended by Donald Trump. So when Liz Cheney talked about the Putin wing of the Republican Party, she's talking about something that has flowed directly from its leader, Donald Trump. And how obscene is it that Donald Trump spends so many days unable to even mention Navalny's name while he was hawking tacky gold $400 sneakers? This is just another reminder of the absolute moral bankruptcy that was described in Jonathan Karl's book, where you have this world leader who has been murdered by Vladimir Putin. And all Donald Trump can think about is how can he make it about himself? How can he cast himself as a victim? How can he associate himself with a man of this kind of courage and vision, which he utterly and completely lacks? One of the things about Donald Trump is his inability to recognize the heroism of others, the courage of others. He can't recognize it in John McCain. He cannot recognize it in Navalny. So what he needs to do is to tear it down and make it all about himself. This was one of those moments where I think if we were not aware of the stakes of this year's elections, that it does involve the Putin wing of the Republican Party possibly getting back into the White House. The events of the last several days, I think, have highlighted that in really stark and dramatic terms.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just correct myself. Milei is of Argentina, the one who is like Trump. I think they're doing abortion bans and such. It's Venezuela that wants to invade Guyana. It's hard to keep all the dictators straight. To go back to you, Ambassador McFaul, the Republicans seem very reluctant to help Ukraine defeat Russia. And, you know, like the old Soviet Union that Putin would like to put back together, degrading their military via Ukraine without a single U.S. soldier having to lose their lives, you would think would be agreed upon by everyone to be good for U.S. national security, right? Russia can't beat Ukraine outright. They need us to help Ukraine lose. And it seems like Republicans want to help Ukraine lose. What do you make of that? And do you think that Navalny's death might change some of their minds and make them stand up to Putin?
Well, first, thanks to both of you for using the word evil. That is right. Putin is evil, and this is a fight between good and evil with large consequences. If Putin prevails in Ukraine, I just got back from the Munich Security Conference, meeting with lots of leaders from the eastern part of our alliance, and let me tell you, it's the specter of the 1930s was hanging over all those conversations, because first it's Ukraine, then it's Lithuania, then it's Poland, and it was, Michael, Americans, wake up. Do not repeat this history again. Those isolationist tendencies, the Lindberghs of the world saying, putting their heads in the sand. They look foolish. They look, just go back and read them. Don't be that, Speaker Johnson. That's your fate if you don't take this action now. And the second thing I would say, you know, in fights against good and evil, it's hard when you're far away. What can you do? You feel helpless. I know Yulia and people around here. What are they supposed to do against this evil person, Vladimir Putin, the day after, you know, just days after he killed her husband? But members of Congress have it right in their hands. It's a piece of legislation that's already passed in the Senate. They can come back from their holiday and be on the right side of history and do good against evil. They don't have to do anything. And I met some of those members of Congress in Munich, and it's striking to me how nobody argues against me when I say that. They're just worried about Mr. Trump. And yeah. I just think you have to sometimes do what's right and worry about the consequences later. And they have this moment. So I just plead with Speaker Johnson, do the righteous thing. You don't get a chance in life very often to do the righteous thing. If you're voted out of a speaker, you know, a few weeks later, at least you had your shot to do something good. This is their shot. They need to do it now. Do it for the warriors in Ukraine and do it for Yulia Navalnaya and all of the supporters of Alexei Navalny.
Instead of that, Charlie Sykes, here was the reaction from J.D. Vance. quote, "We know why Navalny died because we know Putin is a brutal guy, but I know Putin was a brutal guy. I knew Putin was a brutal guy a year ago, and I know he'll be a brutal guy a year from now." Mike Johnson, as Congress debates the best path forward in the support of Ukraine, the United States and our partners must be using every means available to cut off Putin's ability to fund his unprovoked war in Ukraine and aggression against the Baltic states. But he doesn't want to actually pass the bill that would do that. You have Dinesh D'Souza, who's always got to weigh in. Navalny equals Trump. The plan of the Biden regime and the Democrats is to ensure their leading political opponent dies in prison. There's no difference between the two cases. That's what we've got from Republicans, Charlie.
Well, to Dinesh's point, I mean, that is just complete toxic BS. I'm editing myself there. But as the ambassador said, look, Mike Johnson has a chance to actually answer Vladimir Putin back. He has the piece of legislation in his hand. He is holding back on it because, number one, he is, unlike Navalny, he is a political coward so far. An overwhelming majority of members of the House would vote for that legislation. So he is blocking it because he is afraid of Donald Trump. He's afraid of losing his job. He's not afraid of being thrown into prison. He's afraid of going onto the ash heap where he's not going to stay speaker for very long anyway. Yeah. So he's got to ask himself, how does he want to be remembered? What is important to him? What are the values that he is willing to sacrifice for? And so far, it is nothing. But again, it is a very stark moment. By the way, speaking of political cowardice, J.D. Vance refused to even meet with the Ukrainian president Zelensky because he did not even want to be in the same room with him. He did not want to look him in the eye. So we have more cowardice on top of the cowardice.
Absolutely. Right. And this is a 7 in 10 position. 70+% of Americans want this done. Michael McFaul, Charlie Sykes, thank you both.
When there's a crash, I hope it's going to be during this next 12 months, because I don't want to be Herbert Hoover. The one president, I just don't want to be Herbert Hoover.
Okay, that was Donald Trump actively rooting against the well-being of this country and the American people, saying he hopes the economy crashes this year because he, quote, doesn't want to be Herbert Hoover. Well, Trump got his wish. A new poll out today shows that he is not Herbert Hoover. He's actually way, way worse. The poll of historians and scholars ranks every president in U.S. history from best to worst. And while Herbert Hoover received the 36th spot, Trump is ranked dead last at 45. Behind the likes of Richard Nixon, Franklin Pierce, even William Henry Harrison, who died 31 days after taking office. Joining me now is NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss. Michael, you got to be pretty terrible to be ranked below James Buchanan, Civil War failure, pre-Civil War failure, and a guy who only lived for 31 days as president. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say so. And Richard Nixon, who would have been impeached and probably put in jail if it weren't for a pardon by Gerald Ford, don't you think?
Let me put up the top 10.
I have to begin by asking, am I actually getting to talk to the #1 New York Times bestselling author of Medgar and Murley as of this week? Everyone give their congratulations to Joy. That's not an easy thing to do, and the book deserves it.
Thank you. And I think it was your blurb. I think your blurb did it. I do believe that's what did it.
I wish. Glad to take the credit, but it doesn't deserve it.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate you. You are a good friend. You're a good guy. Well, let's talk about these rankings. I'm obsessed with these rankings, by the way. I cannot wait for them to come out every year. I don't know if you're on this committee, but I'm obsessed with it.
No, I'm not.
Here are the top 10. You're not on it. Well, here are the top 10. Abraham Lincoln, who always ranks up the top, usually George Washington, and here at the top. FDR moving up into #2. He moved up. Yep. Jefferson's still there, despite the gulag with an enslaved person under his bedroom. Barack Obama jumps up to #7. Harry Truman, Eisenhower. Kennedy standing up there at 10. Lyndon Johnson at 9. Do you agree with these rankings?
I'd have some differences. It's hard to compare presidents across the generations. You know, they all had different problems, different times. They were living at times that certain ideas were more important than others. I mean, for instance, Theodore Roosevelt, I don't know when historians are going to wake up to the fact that the guy used terribly racist rhetoric, very white supremacist. The 1912 Theodore Roosevelt Progressive Party Bull Moose platform was for segregation of the races in America. So I'm not sure how long that's going to stick.
Right. I mean, Woodrow Wilson used to always get in the top 10. He used to drive me nuts. I'm like, this guy was a horribly racist monster, but he dropped out, right? So he's gone down. I'm interested in some of the movement. Andrew Jackson used to get ranked highly. He's dropped out of the top 10, which I think is a good thing. He's now at 21. He's down 12 places since 2015. And as I mentioned, Woodrow Wilson, he's down 5 points since 2015. Right. Some of those are good. What do you think about the idea of Barack Obama being so high? Because I think he used to be 11 and now he's 7. He's moved up.
Well, I think he has moved up, and I think he will move up further. And as far as Andrew Jackson is concerned, it shows that, historians can do the right thing. It takes us a while. He was president in the early 19th century. But, a liberal like Arthur Schlesinger, the historian, wrote a glowing book about Andrew Jackson. LBJ had Andrew Jackson's portrait in the Oval Office. But we now, given what people are justifiably more sensitive to, this was the guy who did to Native Americans, who was responsible for the Trail of Tears, and he was a slaveholder. Why should he be that high on the list?
Agreed. Let's talk about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is at 15. What do you think ultimately his ranking ends up being?
Well, I think it is possible, and I'm not
14.
saying that he's Harry Truman, not saying that he's FDR, Fox News, hold your fire. But what I would say is that people may very well say that there were elements of greatness in Joe Biden that a lot of people did not expect, that were actually rather similar of Harry Truman, who had decades of experience, loved democracy, willing to make tough calls.
Yeah. And let me show you this. There was a Nazi march this weekend in Nashville that really was reminiscent of what happened in the 1930s. We are in the year that is reminiscent of 1924, the year that the Democratic National Convention was nicknamed the Klan Bake. That was 3 years before Donald Trump's father got arrested at a Klan riot. So that period in the 1920s feels a lot like today. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. 1924 was the apex of the power of the Ku Klux Klan in America. Half of the Democratic delegates at that convention were either members of, leaders of, or controlled by the Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party, in contrast today, was a Southern racist party. Thank God we've come that far, but the Nazis and the Klan are still there.
The last thing I've got to bring up, because it is a little bit fun. So the rankings by by ideology, Donald Trump among the Republicans who made the rankings of best and worst presidents, they ranked him at 41. The Democrats ranked him at the bottom, 45. Independents, bottom. Conservatives, 43. Liberals, 45. Moderates, 45. Everyone agreed, including the Republican rankers, that he's terrible. He couldn't get higher than 41, even with the Republican rankers. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I just can't imagine why someone who was twice impeached and wanted to suspend the Constitution and waged a coup d'etat, an insurrection that might have led to the deaths of leaders of Congress, would rank so low. But could I ask a final question of you, Joy?
Yes.
In honor of President's Day, may I bring you a bottle of Donald Trump perfume?
I might actually toss that out or regift. If you bring me that, I might regift.
No gold shoes. No gold shoes.
Yeah, I think not. Michael Beschloss will regift.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, my
very much.
Good night.
Thank you, my friend.